Welcome to the Telegraph Studios. I'm Louise People, and today we'll be discussing how you can prepare for your retirement. And today I'm talking to Darren Philp, Director of Policy at the People's Pension. Hello, Darren.
Hi, Louise.
Pensions have been in the press more than ever. Now in 2015, what is it all about with pensions?
Well, there's certainly lots going on, and 2015 is going to be a really significant year for pensions. First off, we've got auto-enrolment, and the government policy of automatically enrolling people into a pension scheme is really ramping up this year. Second, there's a huge debate about the quality of people's pension savings. You know, are people saving in good schemes that aren't going to rip them off? And finally, there's the budget changes. So the Chancellor announced some sweeping changes in his budget last year that give people the freedom and flexibility to pretty much do what they want with their pension. And those reforms come into effect from April. So it's going to be a very, very busy year for the pensions industry.
Now let's start with auto-enrolment. What is this all about, and why have employers been given this opportunity?
Yeah, it's a very good question, and it stems from the fact that people aren't saving enough for their retirement. You know, as we all live longer, we all need to save more for our retirement if we're going to be able to have a decent retirement income. So the government decided that given people were disengaged with pensions, given people thought pensions were actually very complicated, that people making decisions about their pensions wasn't the right way to go. So it turned the whole thing on its head. So it decided that people would be in a pension unless they'd actively decided to opt out. And that's basically what auto-enrolment is. So if you don't make a decision about pensions, you'll be saving for your pension.
How does the employer understand all this pages and pages of regulations, terms and conditions, that it's all a bit overwhelming?
It is overwhelming for the employer, and what the industry is trying to do, and schemes like the People's Pension is trying to do, is just trying to make it easy. Like, we have a strapline taking the hassle out of auto-enrolment. It is a hassle, and we can do it for people, and that's what we try and do. One of the important things that and related to that, one of the important things that the employer actually has to do is to choose a pension scheme. So it has to decide who's in, it has to work out how much to pay, and to choose a pension scheme. And it needs to be sure that the pension scheme is going to basically do what it says it does. Make sure it's providing the employees with a good quality savings vehicle, and making sure that they're helping the employer at every step of the way.
So how have you found auto-enrolment?
I think it's been a challenge, yeah. You know, the complexity of it, you know, is huge, yeah. And people have struggled with the rules, they've struggled with the regulations.
Yeah, and you can lose people with that. There's too much jargon.
There is, yeah.
It's very unhelpful to the consumer if you can't understand what you're getting into.
My big wish is that the government could have made the rules and regulations much simpler. After all we're trying to do is get people to save unless they make an active decision not to.
And how can you compare policies if they're not all easy to understand?
Well, exactly. Different providers will provide different things. There are different options, different charges, and we'll come on to charges. But you know, it is very difficult for the employer to understand and actually make those decisions. But so far, and this is so far, and we haven't had anything like the vast majority of employers that have been subject to this yet. The big rump's still to come.
But what's happening with employers?
But it's going well so far. Like, it's been hard, it's been tough, but you know, my understanding is that compliance rates are reasonably good. But the huge challenge for employers is when we get to the really small employers. And from the end of this year, the auto-enrolment duties start coming in for schemes below 30. And these are people that just want to focus on making widgets. They're people that aren't really interested or engaged in pensions, and rightly so. And you know, the success of the policy will be really dependent on how easy it is for these people. The other aspect of course, is if you have a policy of auto-enrolment, yeah, then are people actually staying in, you know, or are they opting out? At the People's Pension, our opt-out rate is about 5.7%, which is really good and really healthy. You know, back in 2010, 2011, people were predicting opt-out rates of 25, 30%. You know, so actually to have an opt-out rate of 5.7% is really healthy, and the average, from what we understand, is between sort of 8 and 10%. So, you know, so we're below, but also, you know, the 8 and 10%, it's looking like people are actually staying in, which is a good thing.
So pensions always get bad press. There's a lot of bad press out there. Yeah. with rip-off charges and all sorts of hidden charges. What's your view on this?
Well, I think the answer to that is relatively straightforward, but it's very difficult to get to. So my view is that we need one way of charging for pensions. Yeah, and what the pensions industry has done over time is come up with
your personal reflection, or is this the people's pension?
No, this is the people's pension.
Okay.
You know, we've consistently called for standardisation in how pensions are charged for. You know, the pensions industry over time has developed so many different ways of charging for pensions. It means that you can't compare one provider to another. It makes it impossible to assess value for money. Yeah, it's like going into a shop, comparing two different products. One is in euros, one is in sterling, the other one is in dollars. You have to get your calculator out and make certain assumptions and stuff.
You've lost people in that
You've
process.
lost people. How can people make that comparison? So we're very firm. You need one way of charging for pensions. And if you look at some of the really bad headlines you get about pensions, and there are a lot of them, you know, never a week goes by without a paper talking about rip-off pensions charges. You know, if you look at some of the schemes that people are saving into, they will be charging more than 1%. And indeed, you know, there was an independent report that was published in December last year, which identified something in the region of between 23 and 26 billion pounds of people's money, people's savings in pension schemes where the charges were greater than 1%. You know, and these charges are just meaning that people will get less money in retirement.
Absolutely.
It comes out of the member's pocket.
Now, the other hot topic at the moment is freedom and choice. What's your view on this, and what's stopping pensioners from blowing their pension on a Lamborghini?
Well, the Lamborghini comment was an unfortunate turn of phrase, but the short answer is nothing stopping them. Yeah?
Right.
But the key question is whether it would be wise for them or not. So, you know, I'm very supportive of the budget changes. I think, you know, they really open up opportunities for people to do something sensible with their money.
Why should they be sensible? They've been sensible all their lives, saving. This is their chance.
Because remember, we're all living longer. Yeah, you can only spend your money once. You know, what do you do if it runs out? So I'm not being a killjoy. I'm not saying don't enjoy it. I'm just saying plan and think about it. So, you know, people will be able to access their money, and they will be able to access their money in a lump sum. But depending on your circumstances, you should really think about, you know, what's best for you. Because, you know, the state pension will provide in the future about £145 a week. It's not a great deal to live on, and you can only spend it once. So.
And what's £145 now? What's it going to be in 10, 20, 30 years?
Well, we just don't know, and that's the thing. So I think that, you know, for some people it will just make sense for them to access their money, especially people with small pension pots. For people with bigger pension pots, then, you know, they should think about getting advice. You know, and there's nothing wrong with people saying, I want to take a lump sum, I want to access their money, but, you know, you need to be aware of the consequences.
But what can we do to help savers make the right decision? It's so important that they get this right. There's only one chance.
Well, I think there is only one chance, because, as we say, if you spend it once, that's it. There's no money growing on trees. The government has been proactive and set up a guidance service called PensionWise, which is independent from providers, and that's really important. And that hopefully will give people the tools to be able to at least sort of think through their options and think about their decisions. For some people, the choice will be relatively straightforward. For others, as I say, you know, if you've got more complicated financial services, if you've got a larger sum of money put aside for your retirement, you know, speak to someone who's an expert, get that independent financial advice. It will probably pay for itself within a year or 2 years. The other big warning thing here, though, is the taxman. You know, pensions are taxed as income.
Are you anti-tax man?
I'm not anti-tax man. I think the tax man does a very important job. But pensions are taxed, yeah? And if you take your pensions out as a very, very big lump sum, yeah, you could change the rate of tax you pay and end up paying more tax than you otherwise wanted to.
So you're a pensioner and you've then gone into a higher tax rate?
You could, yeah, and that could easily happen as a result of the reforms. So people just thinking through their individual tax circumstances, making sure that they are aware of the implications of their decisions will be a really important thing to do. You know, otherwise, you know, people could inadvertently pay more tax than they otherwise should have been.
Okay, so there's big changes ahead. We all know they're coming. These come with risks, they come with lots of change and confusion for some people. Are you optimistic about these changes?
I think I am optimistic, Louise.
I think I am optimistic.
Yeah, I think I am optimistic. Yeah, I'm going to qualify what I say because
Okay.
I think you need to. Yeah, and there's a lot going on. There's lots of moving parts. There's so much regulatory and legislative change at the moment. Who knows what this will all land like and what this will look like in 10 years' time. And no doubt there'll be more change and more change in the future. I think a lot of the stuff that we're doing is going in the right direction. Auto-enrolment, getting people to save more in a pension, tick, it's got to be a good thing, yeah? Making sure people are saving into better quality schemes, tick, it's got to be a good thing. I think the government could do more on that, yeah? But it's a good start. The freedom and choice agenda, it's a big unknown. You know, as I've said, I'm quite optimistic about it. I think it will take a bit of time for it to settle down, but I'm sure we'll have a conversation in a few years' time when we're looking back on what went well and what went less well.
Well, until then, thank you for your time, Darren.
Thank you, Louise.